We're looking at my favourite moment in each Final Fantasy across the main series, from big cinematic set pieces to huge storytelling and character moments.
More prattle.
As always, these are my personal favourite moments. I'll throw in a few honourable mentions, spoilers ahead, and gonna do this in a random order. Let's go!
Right, enough with the bonding. It's go time.
So with Final Fantasy XII, I've got a few highlights, and I'll lead into my absolute favourite moment. Okay, one of the things that really stands out to me is Balthia's journey.
Pirates without a sky.
We eventually learn about his past as a former judge.
You were a judge?
And I've got to say, the reveal that Cid is his biological father adds a surprising emotional weight to his arc. It makes the confrontation with Cid heartbreaking. He's utterly committed to his ideals, no matter the cost.
Was there no other way? Huh. Spend your pity elsewhere.
My almost favourite moment is Judge Gobram's redemption. He's someone who betrays his kingdom and becomes the Empire's loyal enforcer.
I am Judge Magister.
But there's always this feeling that maybe there's still some humanity left in him somewhere beneath the armour and guilt. So when he finally turns on the big bad, Vayne choosing to defend Larsa and his own brother Barsh instead, we finally get the payoff, this badass moment, just short of my absolute favourite.
The hound strays. Treason bears a price.
One I gladly pay.
Because for me, my favourite has got to go to a moment involving all the judges. I've always loved how they're presented in 12. Beyond just looking like complete badasses who dominate every scene they walk into, you gradually realise they all have their own motivations and philosophies.
Blood alone does not an emperor make, Vayne.
That really comes through in this scene after the Emperor's death, in the wake of his son's move to seize control of the Empire. All Judge Magisters are gathered together and their ideals finally clash.
Time as order.
Spare me your lies! I see the serpent coiled here before me!
Some draw a line in the sand, while Judge Zargabath takes a pragmatic stance.
Do not tell me you join in this mama's farce!
With Rosaria poised to invade at any moment, our leader must have a free hand.
It's this collision of titans and movable forces pushing against each other that makes this moment so compelling. Replaying 12, this is the scene I look forward to the most every time because it perfectly captures what makes 12's story so unique. Leaning heavily into political intrigue, clashing character ideologies, and the judges are just heavy metal badasses. Come on.
He shall defy the will of the gods and see the reins of history back in the hands of man. His time is nigh!
Right, before we get into Final Fantasy XI, if you love RPGs, consider subscribing to Bytes or giving the video a like. I'm a bit of an indie game developer who covers RPGs, and I'm replaying the whole Final Fantasy series while ranking them. Thank you.
Is that everything?
With Final Fantasy XI, it was really hard choosing between the big gameplay and story moments. I remember this one moment going up against a Shadow Lord. It was the climactic end of the base game. We break through to one, but these archangels enter the story, flipping the table, decimating both us and the Shadow Lord. The story was sick as hell, and it really sold me on the idea that even as an MMO, 11 could still tell genuinely badass stories worthy of a fantastic Final Fantasy. Storming Delphoot's Tower was one of my first real guild experiences in any MMO, and it got me properly hooked. Later on, reaching those huge sprawling endgame areas like Sky and Sea completely changed the game's sense of scale again. The atmosphere, the music, the visual spectacle, and finally taking down raid bosses as a guild, it all felt incredible and addictive as heck. But my favourite moment comes earlier, and it's one of the first that really stuck with me. Stepping out into the world and discovering Jeuno for the first time. A massive hub city bridging the entire world together where players from all starting nations converge. It genuinely felt like stepping into a living world. Even now, Vana'diel still feels unmatched in how it's built. It feels more like a world than a game. And stepping foot in this huge city for the first time was this amazing experience and my favourite moment in 11. So with Final Fantasy IX, there are honestly a ton of incredible story and character moments. It's a really tough pick. There's the Alexandria sequence where Alexander is summoned and clashes with Bahamut. The sheer scale and spectacle of it is something only Final Fantasy could really pull off at the time. Then you've got all the quiet and more heartbreaking moments with Vivi, especially the way the game slowly reveals his limited lifespan. It's bleak, but in a really powerful and tragic way. And Zidane himself is such a consistently upbeat character, always helping others, so when he breaks down under Garland's words, it hits hard. That moment where everyone comes to his aid one by one, paired with the music You're Not Alone, that came close to being my favourite bit. But for me, it's the ending epilogue. Zidane is missing after the final battle, and you get these glimpses of everyone else's happy endings in between reading sections of a letter from Vivi. And then it hits hard. My memories will be a part of the sky. Vivi is gone, and it's soul-crushing. Just like how the game starts, everything comes full circle with a theatre play. The main character throws off his robes, revealing himself to be Zidane, still alive and confessing his love for Garnet. It's an emotional rollercoaster from start to finish, and for me, maybe the strongest ending in the entire Final Fantasy series. The contrasts in tone, the storytelling, the character writing, it all just comes together perfectly, and that's why the epilogue is my favourite moment. Final Fantasy VI is another incredibly strong entry, so many standout moments across the entire journey. One of the biggest for me is storming the floating continent, pushing through the Empire's forces and ancient monsters, only for Kefka to completely flip the script and win. In a single moment, he brings down the Empire, defeats the party, and then does almost something unheard of in Final Fantasy. He actually succeeds in destroying the world. It leads into what I consider one of the most emotional sequences in the game. Celeste, completely alone at her lowest point, she gives up, and then she finds a slither of hope to keep going, that humanity is still alive. This moment becomes the turning point for the second half of the game set in a broken, ruined world. But all of that builds into my absolute favourite moment, the assault on Kefka's tower. It's this massive endgame dungeon made from ancient pieces of the floating continent and the ruins of the Empire's capital city. You bring together everyone you've recruited in the world of ruins, splitting into 3 parties to drop in and push forward. On paper that sounds messy, but it's actually brilliantly designed. Every character has a reason to be there, and every group feels meaningful, a final effort rising from the destroyed world. You fight your way through the warring triad, the 3 gods whose power Kefka has drained, before finally confronting him at the top, now ascended as a god himself. It just feels so cathartic. Despite already failing to stop the world from being destroyed, you're still able to fight for what's left, and that final battle with Kefka is sick as hell. Final Fantasy XIV is another MMORPG, like 11, and there's no shortage of standout moments across its expansions.
Most fortuitous indeed.
Shadowbringers is still a highlight for me. The story with Emet-Selch takes place in the first, a reflection consumed by light. The atmosphere and ambience is strong, but it's the character writing that makes it so memorable. Emet-Selch is one of those rare villains you can actually empathise with, which makes the whole conflict feel more tragic than a simple good versus evil story.
Even now, after everything, you refuse to see reason.
Endwalker is strong too, especially the finale against the Endsinger. The sense of scale is absurd. You're fighting on the back of Shinryu, one of the series' reoccurring super bosses in its own right. The entire party pulls together their limit break just to survive her ultimate attack, and when she follows up with another one meant to finish the job, it genuinely feels like the end. Then it cuts to the Scions praying for you, the Shadowbringers theme kicking in as the light intervenes the fight. It's one of those moments where gameplay, story, and music all come together perfectly. It's hard to top this moment. But my favourite moment in 14 is more personal, forming a guild and clearing the coils of Bahamut back in A Realm Reborn. Raiding worked differently then, and it was rough at times, but finally taking down Bahamut was the single most rewarding moment of it all.
Keep going, keep going, keep going! Keep going! Yes!
And the story around the coils adds another layer to that reward, reconnecting with Louis Soir.
May light's blessings ever keep and protect you.
And uncovering what really happened in the final moments of the original Final Fantasy XIV, with Bahamut and Phoenix clashing. Because for all of 14's big story beats, the moments that stick the most are the ones you experience with other people.
That is correct.
Final Fantasy IV is where I feel Square really doubled down on character writing and development, so naturally my favourite moments all come back to that. There are a few standouts that come to mind: Paolum and Param sacrificing themselves and turning to stone, a rage-fueled Teller taking on Golbez for revenge, a Cid sacrifice later on which is powerful in the moment, even if it's slightly undercut by the fact he survives. There's also the reveal that Golbez is being manipulated and controlled, and Cecil finally forgiving and accepting his brother was quite a heartfelt scene. But my absolute favourite moment is Cecil's transformation from Dark Knight to Paladin. Climbing Mount Ordeals and shedding his old identity is probably the most iconic moment in the game. As a Dark Knight, Cecil is forced into carrying out some awful acts under the orders of the Baron, and we see him constantly torn up by it. So when he finally transforms into a Paladin, it's not just a job change, it's him breaking free of that life entirely. Almost a full character rebirth, letting his better self take over.
Play it back.
Final Fantasy X. For honourable mentions, there's that awesome moment just before the fight with Yunalesca where Auron gives this legendary speech. It marks the end of this religious pilgrimage and when the team go against the system and fight fate.
Now! This is it! Now's the time to choose. Die and be free of pain, or live and fight your sorrow.
Finally reaching Zanarkand for the first time, seeing the ruins of this city is unbelievably atmospheric. The music, the night sky, the echoes of the dead, and the overwhelming sense of emptiness, it feels very otherworldly and melancholic. You've also got the touching reunion between Tidus and Jet, followed by the badass battle against Jet's final Aeon form. Turning this already sick as hell fight into a deeply emotional, personal struggle.
I promise this will be quick!
And this next moment came very close to being my favourite, and that's finding out that every summoner has to die at the end of their pilgrimage.
And all along, the whole time, I didn't know anything!
It completely recontextualizes the entire story. Then you look back at these moments in the journey that feel tragic in hindsight.
Then, once we beat Sin, we're coming back.
But if I had to pick a favourite moment in 10, it has to be the ending. We break the cycle, we save Yuna, it feels like we're going for a happy ending, and then the game hits you with a double twist. Destroying Sin, and Yu Yevon severs the connection to Dream Zanarkand. Tidus was never truly a part of the world of Spirit to begin with, and he's going to disappear. It's the kind of tragedy that slowly creeps up on you during those final moments, and it's a very heartfelt ending as Tidus fades away. It feels bad, man. It's my favourite bit.
This is your world now.
Final Fantasy VIII is one I really like for its gameplay systems, the Guardian Force Junction system, the system-heavy design. But it's also got some standout moments. The early game in 8 is really nostalgic for me. Balamb Garden, taking the exam in the Fire Cavern, and the Dollop mission where stuff kicks off. It's a great opening stretch. The love story between Squall and Renault is also a key part of 8. Watching Squall go from this closed-off, moody teenager to someone slowly opening up over time, a lot of these moments resonate with me. And the assassination attempt on the Sorceress is another highlight. The build-up and preparation for that mission is excellent. One smaller moment I like is tied to the Guardian Forces. If you have Odin in your arsenal, he'll often show up at the start of a fight and instantly finish enemies off with Zanzetsuken. So going into that final battle with Cypher, Odin automatically gets summoned like normal, and I assumed I'd have an easy victory, but Cypher completely flips it. He kills your Guardian Force outright, and Gilgamesh replaces him. It's a brilliant subversion of expectation. It completely caught me off guard. It is so cool. But my absolute favourite moment in A is the Battle of the Gardens. Two massive mobile fortresses colliding, Balamb Garden versus Galbadia Garden, while everything escalates around it. Motorbike assaults, paratroopers, chaos everywhere as the gardens ram into each other. You're in the middle of a full-scale war and it's building towards a confrontation with the Sorceress. It's one of the most cinematic set pieces in the entire game and a real technical showcase for the PlayStation. Final Fantasy II is interesting because throughout the journey you're constantly getting temporary party members, filling that fourth slot after Leon betrays the group and defects to the Empire. A lot of these guest characters end up sacrificing themselves or dying along the way, which gives the whole adventure a surprisingly tragic tone for such an early RPG. I really like the ending as well. After defeating the Emperor, there's this big celebration where we see the spirits of everyone who died throughout the journey. It's a surprisingly heartfelt moment, and it very nearly became my favourite scene in the game. But my absolute favourite moment is when everything completely kicks off, the Emperor seems defeated, Leon attempts to claim the throne for himself, and then the Emperor returns after breaking free from hell itself. Now even stronger than before. It's pretty sick as hell. Ricard then makes a big play, sacrificing himself to save the party at this peak moment. He was easily my favourite guest party member, a classic dragoon fighting alongside his Wyvern. It's one of the moments that really sticks with me from 2. Final Fantasy VII. There's so much to talk about. I'll rattle a few honourable mentions off. The dropping of Sector 7's plate and the death of Biggs, Jesse and Wedge. Storming and escaping the Shinra building. Reaching the world map for the very first time and realising Midgar is just a tiny dot on the map. Red 13's father. Aerith's fate. The weapons awakening. The return to Midgar. But my absolute favourite is a more personal one. Putting Cloud's mind back together when he and Tifa fall into the Lifestream, finally learning the truth behind Final Fantasy VII. Throughout the entire game, Cloud is this unreliable narrator. Sephiroth is constantly manipulating him with half-truths and lies, altering his memories, slowly breaking him down piece by piece until he completely falls apart. And the Lifestream sequence is where all of that finally pays off. You go back through Cloud's memories, separating what was real from what wasn't, while Tifa helps piece his identity back together. He was never in Soldier, he was an insecure, scared young man who was embarrassed he failed to achieve his dreams. We get to see what really happened at the events in Nibelheim, and Cloud's entire story just really resonates with me. I'm incredibly empathetic for him. It hits so hard, this isn't just a shocking moment, it redefines the entire game. This was the first time a game's story completely blew my mind, and there's always secret foreshadowing hidden across the game that you don't pick up first time through. Cloud taking off his trooper helmet is my favourite scene in Final Fantasy. The main theme of 7 kicks in, and it blows me away every time. With Final Fantasy V, honestly even just unlocking new jobs and getting to experiment with them is a highlight in itself. I absolutely love the job system in 5. Early on, the battle on the big bridge stands out immediately. It's an introduction to Gilgamesh and the music is absolutely incredible. Then there's Galuf's fall against Exdeath, sacrificing himself to save the party. It's genuinely shocking because you just don't expect one of your main party members to die mid-game, but they cleverly work around it by having Coil inherit his stats and abilities. Another personal highlight comes later on when you fight Gilgamesh again. In the middle of the battle, he notices Galuf is missing from the party and asks what happened to him. It's such a small moment, but it adds so much depth to Gilgamesh. He's not just a generic villain, he feels surprisingly human. But my absolute favourite moment comes after Gilgamesh is banished to the Void. During the losing battle against Necrophobe, Gilgamesh suddenly jumps in to save the party, now fully against Exdeath. And from a gameplay perspective, it's really cool because it almost adds a third row on the battlefield. Then Gilgamesh starts giving motivational speeches to each party member, even talking about Galuf. It's this moment where he stops feeling like comic relief and becomes a hero.
That'll do me.
Final Fantasy XVI. I think a lot of my favourite moments revolve around the icon battles and the sheer cinematic spectacle they bring. I absolutely love the fight between Ifrit and Titan. Some sections are a little on the rails, but the music, scale and raw sense of spectacle are just ridiculous. Ifrit versus Bahamut is another standout moment. Seeing Phoenix and Ifrit merge together is such a cool idea, something that feels pretty unique to 16.
I didn't know there'd be a dragon!
Previously we had Alexander versus Bahamut, or Phoenix against Bahamut in 14, literally an apocalyptic clash of world-ending beings. Well, 16 levels up and gives us Ifrit and Phoenix versus Bahamut, and by the end you got my favourite moment in the entire game. Ifrit, Phoenix and Bahamut all standing together against Ultima. 3 of the most iconic summons in the series fighting all at once. It's badass.
Dominance. We will show you what it means to suffer.
The music ramps up and doesn't just accompany the fight, it drives it. It feels like it's sinking directly into what's happening on screen and building tension as the sheer weight of these massive icons and gods turn this into something genuinely jaw-dropping. And this builds to a huge try-disaster moment with all 3 combining their power into one over-the-top energy blast. It's just pure over-the-top scale and spectacle, the kind you can only get in Final Fantasy. For Final Fantasy XIII, I quite like it when we return to Urba and you get to explore this dead, ruined village, and it's surreal, very atmospheric. There's also some emotional payoff with Saz and his son Daj. He's a dad who's definitely out of his depth just trying to save his son. It's one of the more human threads in the story, and it's hard not to feel empathetic towards Saz.
Making a wish, huh?
But my favourite bit, well, I actually really like 13's ending. Fang and Vanille make their final sacrifice, becoming Ragnarok. They turn to Crystal holding up the falling world of Cocoon, essentially becoming the foundation that keeps everyone alive. It's a heartfelt conclusion to 13 and my favourite moment.
That's for damn sure.
Final Fantasy III has a few standout beats that stick with you in different ways. The side content really stood out to me for the first time here as well. I like a lot of the smaller moments, going out of your way to earn new summons for the summoner job, or finding meaningful equipment for different jobs. Lots of experimentation and discovery moments through gameplay that feel rewarding. I really like the journey through the world of darkness where everything becomes unfamiliar and hostile, recruiting the warriors of darkness and light and dark working together to bring balance. Then you've got the final confrontation with the cloud of darkness, this overwhelming force, this world-destroying threat you have to overcome. There's also this quieter, emotional beat with Doga and Une sacrificing themselves to help the party, a rare moment of weight in a game that's otherwise more systems-driven. But my absolute favourite moment in 3 has to be arriving at the Crystal Tower. This is where the game really feels like it properly enters its endgame. It's this huge, towering structure that dominates the world map. You're climbing room after room, boss after boss, treasure after treasure. It becomes this long escalating gauntlet. I love the different aesthetics as you go higher, and the Crystal Tower theme is easily my favourite track in the game. Final Fantasy XV is another tricky one when it comes to picking a favourite moment. But arriving at the water city of Alticia is a major highlight. This Venice-inspired city is absolutely gorgeous, and seeing Leviathan wreak havoc on it is genuinely jaw-dropping.
I tell you what, you got a point there.
There's also a really heartbreaking turning point with Lunafreya's death. It's sudden, tragic, and it shifts the tone of the entire story just after things were becoming a bit more hopeful. I'd also give a shout out to moments in the episode Ignis DLC. Honestly, it feels criminal that some of those major story developments weren't in the base game. It adds a lot more weight and clarity to everything happening around that point in the story.
Oh, that's such a tease.
But my personal favourite moment has to be the ending, returning to the ruins of Insomnia where everything began. The final battle with Arden, and then that ending, Noctis and Lunafreya finally together in death. It's bleak, it's tragic, and it's dark stuff. It's the kind of ending that sticks with you. And finally, the original Final Fantasy. Early on, I quite like rescuing the princess and the king finishing the bridge that opens up the overworld. For its time, that must have been pretty mind-blowing. Suddenly the world just opens up in front of you. I also really enjoyed going up against each of the 4 fiends as they appear throughout the journey. It gives the adventure this steady sense of progress and purpose. You're after these 4 crystals and 4 fiends. But my favourite moment has to be after you restore all 4 crystals and return to the Chaos Shrine, travelling 2,000 years into the past. This endgame dungeon has such a strong atmosphere, the ambience, the music. I'm showing the Pixel remaster, but even back then, Final Fantasy had catchy soundtracks. It almost feels like a boss rush. You fight the four fiends again, but everything feels more intense. And then you reach Garland, who reveals himself to be chaos itself. And the game drops this huge twist that he's created an infinite time loop. And the only way to stop it is right here, right now. Even in the very first Final Fantasy, they were already doing time loops and end of the world stakes, crazy stuff.
Awesome!
Next up, plan is to revisit Final Fantasy Type 0. I literally couldn't remember anything about Type 0, so it was an interesting one to return to. In the meantime, check out my ranking of the Final Fantasy main series, my World of Warcraft Midnight Big Review, or this one where I revisit Dragon Age Origins DLC and rank them. Have a good one.